Alright, here we go. We're kicking off this draft. It looks like nicely with the Sandwurm Convergence. I haven't had a chance to play with this card yet, but it's a really powerful card. It says creatures can't attack you, their flying guys can't attack you, and every turn you're going to get a worm. And it starts from the very first turn you get it because you get the worms at the end of your turn. So drop this for 8, you get a worm right then, and as long as you can survive a turn or two after you play this, it's pretty hard for your opponent to win. I have beat it once before when they were able to make like 5 or 6 worms, but it's very atypical to be able to beat it after they make a few worms. And that makes sense because, I mean, just generating a ton of 5/5s is pretty nasty. Interestingly enough, the rest of this pack is not super exciting. Synchronized Strike is a good card that can pump some guys and untap them. Time to Reflect is an okay card if you are deep in zombies, but it's definitely not a card you want to first pick. Essence Scatter is a good support card for blue. Hooded Brawler is a reasonable attacker. I'm not a giant fan of him, but he's pretty good. I know Kenji likes him a lot. He is a Naga warrior after all. But we're going to take the Sandwurm Convergence and we're going to hope we can get a little bit of a couple ways to ramp to it. Okay, so we're looking around this pack here, and we've actually got a way to ramp to the Sandwurm Convergence in the form of another rare Bounty Aluxa. This card's kind of interesting because we could very feasibly be able to cast the Sandwurm Convergence on like turn 6 if we cast the Bounty Aluxa on 4. But we got to be careful because we want to make sure we don't just get killed while we're casting all these cards that don't affect the board like the Luxa. The Luxa can be really strong though, and we are already looking blue-green once we take the Sandwurm Convergence because the green-blue deck is the deck that's closest to a ramp deck. It has an uncommon that is pretty weak for anyone else since splashing cards to help you ramp doesn't really make sense, but it's very good for us. Okay, so we've got a Spring to Mind, which looks really nice. It can get us a land, and later we can draw cards. This is worth considering, but also the Naga Vitalist is good. I think we're going to take the Vitalist here, just because we're going to want to be able to ramp to things in the early game as well. Ideally, we're not spending our turn 3 to search for a land, even though this card's kind of cool because it ends up being kind of a 3-for-1. Floodwaters is worth consideration, but it's really not a card you need to pick up early in this. Even though it's a powerful effect, you'll find Floodwaters just milling around the pack pretty late. And we really aren't seeing much besides the cards that are in our colors, which is actually pretty awesome because that means that the people passing to us are probably taking strong cards in other colors. Okay, we've got a couple options here. Essence Scatter is a solid card. Initiate's Companion is a solid card. Also Censor. I like Censor quite a bit because you can cycle it and because it can counter anything at the right moment. So I think we're going to go with Censor here. We'll think about it for a second because we may decide we want the Essence Scatter, which can always counter a creature. But our plan is going to be to try to get to the late game, and I like the idea of being able to be able to counter non-creature spells as well as creature spells. Let's make this a little bigger. That's not how we're going to do it. Alright, so I think we're going to go with the Censor here. If I weren't picking the Censor, I'd probably pick the Essence Scatter. Probably not the Initiate's Companion for this kind of deck. Okay. Alright, so we've got an Aven Initiate we could take if we want. We've got a Spring to Mind we could take. Aven Initiate, the 3/2 flyer with Embalm. This guy's pretty good. We've also got the Spring to Mind. Again, Spring to Mind is a pretty good card, but we may table the other one that was really early in the pack. I think it was I think it was 3rd pick, and we took Naga Vitalist over it. So I think what we're going to do is we're probably going to take... Now this is interesting. The Benefaction may end up to be very good in here, especially if we get a couple cartouches, because we've got these 2 enchantments, which are kind of money cards in our deck. I think we're going to take the Aven Initiate, who's just better in most situations here. There's a foil fetid pools in this pack, which is pretty interesting, but we're not going to take that. We're just going to take the Aven Initiate. Okay, so Illumination is a really sweet card, as it can cycle, and you can also just draw 2 cards at instant speed. The Cryptic Serpent's going to be pretty weak in our deck because it cares about instant sorcery cards, and a lot of our non-creature cards are looking like they're going to be enchantments. We're going to grab the Cartouche of Knowledge here, and we're kind of excited that we get to grab a Cartouche here. Even though we don't have a ton of creatures to put it on yet, it's a card that's just very good. Just being able to throw it on any guy and draw a card is nice. And it's going to go well with, we'll probably be able to pick up a late Benefaction of Ronus, rather. Okay, so we're loaded up with cards that would be decent in our deck. Crab would be good in our deck. Floodwaters would be good in our deck. Illusory Wrappings would be good in our deck. I think we're going to take the Illusory Wrappings in this case, as we're trying to get to the late game, and it's more powerful than the Crab in that way. Also, we're more likely to see Crabs later than we are the Wrappings. It's also another enchantment that would power a Benefaction of Ronus if we decide to take one later. Alright, we've got another Aven Initiate. This is a nice... these are nice to take, as you can win the game with a 3/2 flyer. You could win the game by just attacking them in the air several times. So I think that, you know, having this fail-safe of being able to win with Initiates if you don't get to go off with your Luxa and your Sandwurm Convergence is good. There's a cancel, which is worth consideration, but the Aven's going to be the pick here. Something you may want to consider at this point, too, is that it looks like we may be getting our green cut up a little bit. We only got past the Vitalist and the Bounty Alexa, and the Bounty Alexa almost doesn't really count because it's blue and green. So it's possible somebody's dipping into our green pretty heavily. Alright, so we've got a Giant Spider here, and really these cards, they're not super exciting for our deck. None of them are ones that we're super afraid of, or that would be good if we ended up changing colors or something like that, and I think we're probably not going to change colors. We're going to take this Giant Spider, and we're going to hope to not have to play it in the main. Alright, so here we've got an option for a Deliverance, a Floodwaters, or a Quarry Hauler. The Quarry Hauler is about as weak in this deck as it can be. I think we're going to take the Floodwaters. Although we could take the Descender's Deliverance, they're kind of similar in here. I think we're going to take the Floodwaters. I guess decision paralysis. These are not exciting picks here. Okay. I can't imagine a matchup where we're actually going to board this in. We're going to grab this Brute Strength and throw it over there. There's a Benefaction for us. So both of those Spring to Minds did not come back, so we probably have another blue-green drafter at the table, which is kind of lame. Some people like Oracle's Vault, not a huge fan myself. Edifice of Authority is a very good card. It's probably better in Seal than it is in Draft, but it's pretty solid in Draft as well. You got to play its activated ability there on the top that says a creature can attack this turn 3 times before you can start really getting a lot of value with it by making the creature not be able to do anything for 1 mana later on. In defensive decks, this card's really good because you already want to stop them from attacking, but if you're on offense, the card is not near as good. Our deck is very likely going to be on defense, so it's going to be a really good card for us, and it's easily the best card in this pack for us. Our second choice would probably be Spring to Mind, which we're hoping to wheel here. And this deck doesn't want Slitherblade at all. Slitherblade would go in an aggressive deck, and I really don't know where Slitherblade actually belongs in this set, because he doesn't feel like he belongs in this deck, and I don't know that he really belongs in any of the decks. We're going to take the Edifice. So we've got a pretty reasonable shell here. Let's do a quick enchantment count. We've got Cartouche, Illusory Wrappings, Bounty Alexa, and Sandwurm Convergence. So we've just got 4. We'd like to have at least 6 enchantments if we're going to be serious about running the Benefaction. Okay, let's take a look here. So there's another blue Cartouche, but we've only got 4 creatures. So we really kind of have to prioritize creatures if we can, and we can play, we can take the Shimmer Scale Drake, which is a good creature in our deck. So I think that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to pass the Cartouche, even though it's kind of lame to pass one. The Cartouches are nice to grab, especially if you already have one, or if you're wanting enchantments like we are with the Ronus. But we're going to take the Drake anyways here. And to be fair, just a second ago before we took the Drake, we had the same number of creatures and enchantments, so either one would have helped us get better for the Ronus. But obviously you're going to expect to end up with more creatures than enchantments at the end of a draft, or your deck's going to have problems. This card's very strong. It's kind of worth a look, the fact that it is still here. It's almost worth taking and considering playing blue-black depending on what we get here, but I really am kind of in love with the Sandwurm Convergence, and the Naga Oracle is good for the Sandwurm Convergence, so I think we're going to take the Naga Oracle and just pass that Stir the Sands. There is another Stir the Sands. That's too bad because we would have liked to have grabbed 2 of those if we knew we could get a second one. So we need something else here, probably another copy of Illusory Wrappings, since we don't have an option to take a defensive creature. We could take the Bitterblade Warrior, but he's not a great defensive creature. He's much better on offense than defense. Okay, I guess here we're going to want the Winds of Rebuke. I'm not sure if this is going to make our deck or not, but we can take it, and we may decide we want to play it. Winds of Rebuke can be a little bit dangerous, especially when you are playing to a single card like we're kind of playing to the Sandwurm Convergence here, because you may mill the card off the top of your deck. But really, unless you are going to run out of cards, that's not a real consideration. Like, if you did mill that card, you would know it, and that would help you. That would actually help you figure things out. So in a way, milling it's better than just having it be near the bottom and you not knowing it. But it still doesn't feel good when it happens. Okay, we definitely want the Seeker of Insight here. The Illumination is a good card, but the Seeker of Insight is a creature, and we need some creatures. It's also a decent blocker, and it's a decent target for the cartouche as well, the blue cartouche we've got. Very much not a fan of the Pouncing Cheetah, so we are not going to take him. Shed Weakness is a fine card, but it's not very good in this deck, where we're kind of creature light and where pump spells don't really make sense. We're going to take the Cyclable Compelling Argument, because we're going to probably just cycle it. We're going to pay 1 blue and throw it in the graveyard and draw a card. Almost certainly, and we may end up not playing it if we get enough playables. That's the hopeful. That's what we're hopeful for. All right, so here we don't actually have anything we can take. We're gonna go ahead and take Luxor River's Shrine. This card's pretty bad, but we may find a matchup that we want it in. All right, we're gonna take a Dissenter's Deliverance for the board here, and looking at the deck right now, it's not looking near as good as it looked right at the beginning when we started off with that Convergence into the Bounty of Luxa. Looks like we're getting eaten up for the green. Both sides of us look like they're taking the green away. We're probably not going to play this Slitherblade, but we're going to take him in case we get forced into it just when we have too few creatures. I would really love a green cartouche to go along with all of our blue cartouche, and then also one of the trials would be nice. So red looks pretty open here. We're gonna grab the red cartouche here. Hopefully keep people away from snagging up green or blue trial. Okay. Guess we'll take Violent Impact here. We don't need any of these cards. We're not going to play this Haze of Pollen, but we'll take it anyways. There's a Cradle of the Accursed. That's not impossible we'd play that. Oh, there's Hepatra. Makes you wish you would have picked a little differently with all that black running around and Hepatra coming open in this pack, and really nothing exciting for us to take at all. Now, if green was our main color and we were splashing blue, we could take the Hepatra here, but Hepatra is kind of being double splashed if we take it here. Something we may want to start considering is splashing another color that's not black. We could take the Ta Crop Elite, which is pretty good here, or the True Heart Duelist, which is decent here. But I think maybe we actually just need to take a, like a companion that we can trade off early in the game, or just take a draw spell here. I think we're going to take the companion. It's a pretty rough first pick, but we just need to try to get our. Well, we could take the gift. I guess our deck kind of wants the gift with the Sandwurm Convergence. We're going to take the... I guess we'll take the gift. It is another enchantment for our benefaction. Okay, finally, sweet, we got past a very good card. The Glyph Keeper is a really strong card. This is a card that, if we slam it down, can just help us win. You'll notice the first time it becomes a target or spell ability, it's going to counter the spell ability. It's got the Shimmering Glasskite and Jetting Glasskite ability. And not only that, it costs less than Jetting Glasskite, is a 5/3 instead of a 4/4, and then also embalms. It's pretty powerful. I guess it's just rare. Probably should be mythic, but it feels really great whenever you play it. So one thing to be careful of when you have it is not to target it yourself, as whatever you target with it will get countered, and it'll kind of open him up, open the Glyph Keeper up to get hit by their removal. So here, normally I would love to take a Synchronized Strike if I'm in green, but we're not going to take that. We're going to take Tawcrop Skirmisher. We just want some more creatures that we can block with in order to get to our flying and Sandwurm Convergence win conditions. This card's a little scary against us, Heaven to Earth. You can imagine, kill all the flyers, kill all our flyers, and then if they have 7 mana, they can kill all the worms. But hopefully by then they'll just be dead. So we could take a Colossopede here, which is a 5-drop, or we could take Greater Sandwurm. I think I like taking Greater Sandwurm here since we've got the bounty. We might be able to get that into play quite a bit earlier than normal. We've also got the Vitalist. I think we're going to take the Greater Sandwurm here, and it can cycle. Shimmering Drake is solid. We could also take a Seeker of Insight or an Ancient Crab. I think we're going to take the Seeker of Insight. I think these are going to be pretty good in our deck. You know, although, what are we not going to run? Let's look at what we're not going to run. We're not going to run Decision Paralysis. Or Winds of Rebuke, probably. Or Compelling Argument. I'll go ahead and reserve the Drake, just in case I run out of time here looking here. Alright, so we may not run the Floodwaters either, or the Giant Spider. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 enchantments for the benefaction, which I kind of like. Yeah. We're going to go with the Drake here. Maybe we'll wheel one of those Seekers. Maybe we'll wheel that Seeker, or we'll get another Seeker in one of these packs. Alright, Weaver of Currents is a pretty obvious grab for our deck. It's nice that we got one of these. These aren't good in other people's decks, but they're really good in this one, and I was a little concerned that we weren't going to get one. Just being able to ramp your mana quickly is an awesome thing to be able to do. So the Scribe of the Mindful can only get instants or sorceries. It can't get enchantments back, which is pretty annoying. It means that it's just a lot worse in our deck than it would be otherwise. Reduce is mana leak that costs 1 more. And since we're not going to cast Rubble, that's all it would be in here. We're probably not going to play this card, but we might find a matchup where we want to bring it in, so we'll throw it on the board. Now we don't want a second benefaction. We don't have so many enchantments that's worth that. We're going to go ahead and grab the Tawcrop Skirmisher. Very much hoping to get a Seeker back, and this deck would be reasonably complete. Kind of lame that we didn't get any other trials or a green cartouche, and kind of lame we had to pass that blue cartouche in favor of the Drake earlier. The Drake is very good, but the blue cartouche is another enchantment, and it draws a card when it comes in. So we've improved our curve quite a bit. We've got more cards over here on the left that we can start the game off with, and then most a good chunk of these later game cards actually cycle. This card, don't even know what this thing does. Super weird card. We don't really need any of these cards. We'll just grab a trial just for fun. So we got the Colossopede back, and I think he is probably the grab here. We could take a Manglehorn, or a Cancel, or the Cultivator. We got a lot of choices here, but I think that the Colossopede is probably the best call for our deck. We're going to grab a Stinging Shot, which might be good in here. We'll take a Cultivator that we're probably not going to play. an Ancient Crab that we might play. Get that Blazing Volley out of there. Alright, so just looking over this deck, we need to go ahead and cut 3 cards, or 2 cards. We could actually run this with 24, given all the cycling that we've got. Let's go ahead and adjust this over so we can see our Sandwurm Convergence. So, we've got 15 creatures. We probably want to keep at least 13 creatures, ideally 14 or 15. So I think we're definitely going to play Cartouche, Censor, Seeker. I want to play both the Skirmishers, then the Vitalist, the 2 Illusionary Wrappings. The Crab is a maybe. The Gift is a maybe. We want to play Benefaction, we want to play Weaver, we want to play Edifice. We want to play both the Initiates, we want to play the Oracle. We might not play the Spider. 2 Drakes, the Glyph Keeper, and the Claw Speed look good. Floodwaters is a maybe as well. Let's actually go ahead and pull Floodwaters. I think that's one of the easiest ones for us to cut. We've got this and this. We've got our Weaver, which ramps us up, and our Bounty, which ramps us up as well. And they both kind of do a better job than Gift does. I think we're going to take the Gift out. We've got 24 cards now. Will we be comfortable running this? We've got 15 creatures if we do it this way. And let's see how many enchantments we've got to see if that Benefaction's still worth it. We'd want at least 4 or 5 at a very minimum. And we want them to be impactful. This one's obviously impactful, and so is this one. It's 2, 3, 4. Exactly 5. It makes me wonder if we should just go ahead and play the Gift. 5's a decent amount. There's a reasonable chance we'll be able to draw those. Let's take a quick look at our deck if we split the creatures up. So looking at this, we've got a reasonable curve here. We're a little light on 3s, but if we get the Naga, we can go straight to 4s. The Crab, the Spider, and the Oracle, and the 2 Skirmishers and the Seeker should help to keep us in the game long enough to get to our later game cards. All right, let's see what we want for land here. I think we're gonna want a little bit more blue than green. Yeah, and I think that's right about right here. We do want to be able to hit this Vitalist, but we want to be able to hit Crab on 3 as well. We definitely want to be able to play all these 2-drop blue cards. We're going to go ahead and put those back. And we'll sort by converted mana cost. So here is what our deck is going to end up looking like here.